Throughout this past year, I've often thought about what it would have been like to experience the COVID-19 pandemic in any other decade within recent living memory. The early 1990s, for example, before dial-up internet, or even, say, 2003 when the smartest a phone got was being able to play Tetris on your commute. How would we have self-isolated and worked from home, kept in touch with our friends and loved ones, without the technologies that are now so readily available to us? Not so long ago, I would scoff when I heard the hideous word webinar, and yet here we now find ourselves, talking to everyone through screens like you'd see in all those science fiction films from the 20th century. The restrictions of the COVID-19 pandemic have escalated the adoption of digital communication technologies into almost everyone's work and personal lives in a way that was unfathomable just a year ago. So what has it been like for creatives adapting to a life lived online? I'm Graeme Watson.
And I'm Karishma Kusurkar.
And welcome to The World Turned Upside Down, a 4-part audio documentary sharing stories of how the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic has impacted upon the lives and livelihoods of people working in the creative industries in Northern Ireland. In this episode, we'll hear stories of how creatives found themselves connecting online, the successes and challenges, the disappointments and surprises. We'll meet stationery designer Emma Johnston, Newry-based American artist Lauren Taylor, and marketing expert Andi Jarvis. But first, don't you miss live music?
The people are doing like drive-through gigs. Like one of my favorite bands, Maximo Park, are doing like one in Newcastle where it's like literally a drive-through gig. That would feel weird. I would feel, I don't know, you're just playing to a bunch of cars at that point.
Shannon Dolores O'Neill has been something of a trailblazer on the Northern Irish music scene over the past few years. As well as running her punk band Sister Ghost, Shannon is also the founder and director of Girls Rock School Northern Ireland. Part of the global girls rock movement, Girls Rock School is a community which empowers women and girls of all ages to become rock and roll hellraisers. When the pandemic hit, Shannon was forced to return to her childhood home of rural Limavady.
At the start of it, it was a crazy big change for me because I had to move back home with my parents for the first time in 9 years. And it was kind of scary losing all work, and I'm sure that I shared all the anxieties that so many different people were having. And as a freelancer, you just had to kind of work out, how do we get around this? How do we work within these parameters? And thankfully, things like Zoom have been helpful for that. But I'm on universal credit now, it has been a drastic change for me. It's also given me a lot of time to rethink, and it's given me a lot of time to write songs. So I'm working on an album now, which I wouldn't really have had the time for before. So
the indefinite pause on live music has been one of the biggest shocks for musicians. Aside from the irreplaceable buzz of performance, gigs have become one of the primary income streams in the age of music streaming.
It has impacted the music industry massively, from huge bands to small bands. The main income is merch and gigging. That is where you're not getting anything from Spotify. You're getting nominal things from Bandcamp. Let's not kid ourselves. It's all about being out there, being on the road and selling merchandise. Personally, from my point of view on it, and bands and artists that I'm friends with and stuff, but I do think that on a personal level, it's been hard not gigging. It's been difficult to see at sometimes what's the point, what's the point in maybe putting out a new single or something like that, because it's so part of you is who am I to put out something right now in the middle of this? And then unless there's some sort of charitable element of it. But then at the same time, you're I'm still an artist, and it's still part of my job to create and put things out there.
2020 had started off well for Sister Ghost, who were excited to be releasing a new single which was already starting to attract some high-profile attention.
So back whenever I knew I was putting out Bruised Fruit, it was like in January. So it was after we'd finished our Irish tour, and I was like, let's put this out in the spring of the year when everybody's getting out and doing things again. And it's that part of the year where the energy's lifting. We're all going to have a great time. And so naturally, I was like, let's do it on a Friday the 13th. And so there was a Friday the 13th in March. So we had that booked in. Wanted to do it in a local record shop and support them, and also just have this cool, intimate punk space, which we hadn't done in a long time. So we had that all booked, and then, as you know, like just through February and March, like these reports of this virus just kept coming and coming and increasing. Everybody was kind of unsure. Is this real? Is it not? Like, people in work were buying masks and stocking up on them. People were laughing at them for that, but it turns out that they were the winners all along. But then it came to the week of the gig, and Kendall, my good friend Kendall, who plays in the band Heartshaped, she was supporting us, and she messaged me the day before and was like, "Look, man, they're like canceling a bunch of gigs. Like, things are kind of kicking off." And this was the day before, so this was Thursday. And I was like, look, let's just go for it. It's a small gig. There's only going to be about 30 or 40 people, because that's like the capacity in that room. Let's just go for it. We went down, and then on the day, people, like a couple of friends, like from different bands, were like, look, I'm a bit scared. Don't cancel my ticket money. Like, take it as a donation to the band, but I'm not going to be there. But we went ahead with it. And it went really well. Like, it was class. Like, I'm so glad now in retrospect that we did do it. And we were lucky to be able to do it like just before it really kicked in.
While playing what felt like the last gig at the end of the world was cathartic, it was difficult to avoid a feeling of deflation in the aftermath.
Something that me and Maeve have talked about since is how, like, the single itself kind of got lost in the mix. And that, as an artist, is upsetting, because, you know, you put all the effort into writing and recording, putting your press releases out, like, and we got good press for that single. Like, we were printed in hot press, which is like one of my bucket list things. Like, that was a really special moment to have. And so to have a song that had like good potential to just kind of disappear into something, and you feel bad about feeling bad about that, because it's in the middle of a pandemic and people are dying.
The situation did, however, suggest that the time was right for the release of a long-planned live album with an almost prophetic title.
And I swear, like, on everything, that I had called it Live and Contagious years ago. I can find the note in like an old notebook. It was a pun on Thin Lizzy's Live and Dangerous. And I just thought it was hilarious to call it Live and Contagious.
For the girls' rock school community, the effect of lockdown at first was to pause.
First part of lockdown, we kind of just took a chill out. We were just like, everybody's kind of feeling overwhelmed right now in the entire world. So let's just take like a wee time out to reset. Let's not put any pressure on ourselves.
But as time went on, the global girls' rock community were finding new ways to connect.
But then around May, we had a team meeting. We were like, lots of different camps are using Zoom now. They're bringing their camps online, or they're planning to do that. And so the first sort of step that we did was we did like a global call out to all of our different campers and tutors and friends in like Girls Rock Melbourne, and over in Girls Rock Santa Barbara, Girls Rock Edinburgh, Dublin, London. And we got people to send in videos of them covering Bikini Kill's song Rebel Girl, which is like an anthem, just kind of represents all the good things about Girls Rock. So we had that, and we made like a little video compilation. So we did that, and that was a nice wee way to be like, hello community, like, we're still here, you're still there, let's see if we can get together in this new online world.
And from there, a weekly open mic session was born.
And then Roisin from Ukuleles, Roisin Erskine, she got involved with Girls Rock last year at camp, and is now part of the team. And so she had like all of this expertise on like Zoom open mics. She's doing them all the time with her ukulele jam, etc. And so she was like, let's do an open mic. And so we've been starting to do on a Friday night an open mic session, which is, the first one was just open to our campers and tutors from last year. So it was a nice moment for us all to come together and see each other again. And the tutors played, and we had like AJ from Gender Chores. He had like a little art corner, and he was like teaching us how to draw guitars using only like specific shapes. So it was great crack. And then the following week, then we had me and Maeve came on to be special guests. So we did a couple of Sister Ghost songs, and there was Q&A. Then we had Karishma put on an incredible set last week, Q&A as well. And then we had campers, and also we had people that we'd never met before came along and performed. And like, that's class too, because you can still make friends and you can still increase the community during this time with the help of the internet.
Without question, one of the things the COVID-19 pandemic will be remembered for is the many inventive and creative ways people across the world in so many walks of life have connected online. But in doing so, we've learned that there is something about living through screens which can drain us in a way that in-person interactions tend not to.
It was weird at the start. I think it's like anything, whenever you're new to something, like it feels a bit strange. And like I would still get like screen fatigue if something goes on longer than an hour and a half. Like, or two. I think I was at like a 2-hour session one time, like a black box session. I was helping with a carers project thing there, and it was like their showcase, and it went on for like a long time. I mean, it had to, but you can get kind of fatigue from it. But I think I've just gotten used to it now. Like, we've had so many meetings with Girls Rock now and the open mics, and I think the more you do something, the more you get used to it. But that's not to say that I don't want it to go back to normal at some point, and we can have, conversations in person a lot more.
While the pandemic restrictions have strengthened international connections through digital communication tools, for Shannon, it's the opportunities she's had to travel and meet in person with others in the Girls Rock community that have been so valuable.
I would just encourage like people, if you do have the capabilities to do so, do travel like and see the world and make friends from as many different backgrounds and cultures as you can, because like for me personally, like it's made me a better person. And even like having other camps to talk to and be like, how are you doing it online? Like, what advice do you have? Like, because we are small time compared to the likes of Girls Rock Santa Barbara. So even just seeing like how they're doing it has been really helpful. And we're a part of the GRCA now, which happened during lockdown, which was very exciting. Like that's the Girls Rock Camp Allegiance. So they represent all the camps around the world. So we're now officially on their website, like we're on the map of the world. Like, and so they have like they have like a Mighty Networks profile. And so on there, you can just post about anything regarding like leading a camp, teaching a workshop, like how do we talk about what's the correct wording for inclusivity, anything at all. And there's people there from all over the world that are like, this is how we do it.
But for people who live in small towns or rural areas, going digital has made brilliant initiatives like Girls Rock School NI more accessible.
I think, well, if you wanna get involved with Girls Rock, and if you're listening across the world, then your best thing that you can do is go to the GRCA website. So it's a Girls Rock Camp Alliance .com, I think it is, or .org, and that'll show you a map around the world of where your camp local to you is, and so you can get in touch, because most camps are doing things online now, and they do want to support their community and keep their community together, but also grow their communities. And that is why we have like opened those open mics to anyone, regardless if they have previously attended our events, and we have been finding new people coming in, which is class. And some of those people have been from rural communities as well, we've noticed, and they've been like, I've never gotten a chance to connect with people who have like, like-minded people, because I've been based rurally. And like, that was my personal experience growing up for sure. And so that for me has made us realize that I would like to take Girls Rock NI, to the country essentially, as well as like to Derry City too.
For fans of live music and sweaty, rowdy, noisy gigs, it's one of the strangest experiences to live through a year with little prospect of enjoying that experience now or for the foreseeable future. How soon will it return?
Playing in a punk rock band, like It's all about that crack. Like even with your bandmates, you want to be all up in their grill, like during a guitar solo or whatever. Like, so that is, it's hard to see and it's hard to know. Like we can't predict the future. All we can do is just hope that a time like that does come back.
Emma Johnston, founder of stationery brand Hunter Paper Company, launched her brand new online retail offering Hunt and Gather during the lockdown. At the start of lockdown, her regular wholesale clients had begun shutting up shop and her wedding clients had started changing their plans due to restrictions on large-scale events. Attending and networking at trade shows, also large-scale events, had always been one of the key strategies by which Emma connected with potential clients and customers, but even these began to shut down when the pandemic became our day-to-day reality. Despite the restrictions on human interaction, Emma's interest still lies in getting back to in-person shows and setting up stores and ways which allow clients and customers to properly see and feel a product, something that just cannot be replicated online. She is still forging ahead with plans to launch a bricks and mortar Hunt and Gather stationery store in East Belfast in the coming months, and the messages of support Emma has already received show that it's something that many are looking forward to.
So I make a living from designing greetings cards, selling them wholesale. I also sell retail on Not in the High Street, my own website, and just during lockdown as well, I set up a shop called Hunt and Gather. It's kind of a sister brand to Hunter Paper Co. And I kind of wanted them to run alongside each other, but to be separate projects as well. Around Christmas, I was like, okay, I'm going to launch in January, February time. I'm always really busy around that time of year because that's like main trade show season. So I just finished the trade shows and of course, coronavirus hit like 2 weeks later. So the plan was to like get the trade shows over with and then launch, but then I don't know. I kind of spent like a month or two just kind of sitting around thinking, oh, what should I do? What should I do? And even like at the start of lockdown, people were starting to stop and posting and, posting products out and things like that. So there was that kind of scary time where we didn't know how online retail would go. And then it obviously went very well for a lot of people. So yeah, I just thought then when I seen things starting to trend towards online, this is the time really. So yeah. I haven't noticed too much of a dip in revenue over the last few months because of that. So yeah, I've been really lucky to kind of pivot a little bit and get online. For the wholesale customers, they're all over the world, mostly in the UK and Ireland, and then quite a few in America and a few in Europe as well. And they've started to order again, which has been great. But now the Hunt and Gather side of things, the customers, it's really been quite focused locally, which has been really nice, and got a lot of support of people wanting to see this shop come to fruition really and happen. So that's been really nice. And then as well, like we started doing a little bit of Facebook advertising and got a few customers over in England and things like that. So yeah, it's been a nice mix, but definitely local has really driven the sales at the start. During lockdown, my husband helped a lot with setting up Hunt and Gather, and he's still helping quite a lot, although his work has now picked up a bit. So he's been helping quite a lot with the back end of the website and that sort of thing, but I'm the designer, the printer, all that sort of stuff. So, and yeah, a lot of packing orders low, he's been helping with that too. So yeah, it's a team effort, but I think with any small business, you rope in family when you need to. So I have my mum packing cards, my mother-in-law, everybody. So everyone's involved in it.
We asked Emma about whether her plans for opening a stationery store are still going ahead despite the pandemic and potential lockdowns.
People do want to see it happen, and they'll message us and say, oh, I can't wait for a stationery shop to be in Belfast, and that sort of thing. So people want to see it happen, and I think it's the right time for people to kind of get behind that sort of thing. And yeah, it's the right time to be putting it out because people have more time at home to sit on their phones and think about what Belfast could be like next. From my background of going to trade shows for the last few years with Hunter Paper Co., I'd kind of picked out lots of brands that I'd even just had in my mind for years before I even thought of a shop, like brands that I really liked. And and kind of followed along for a long time. So the last trade shows that I did there in January and February, I just took a bit of time out from the stand and went and sourced quite a few. So I just got in contact with them when we finally started to really start hunting gather. And then from there, just like a lot of the shops that I've stocked are kind of similar in like product selection to what I want to do, really. So a lot of looking through Instagram, that sort of thing. And yeah, I think I'm just in that world anyway, so it hasn't really been a problem. I can't like really imagine my sort of business without trade shows. It's so important to meet the wholesalers that take on your products in person, because you only meet them that one time a year, and the rest of the time you're talking over email. It's just really nice to connect with them. And as well as that, I would connect with my suppliers at trade shows too. So my paper supplier, envelopes and things like that. So it is really important to be able to have those relationships face to face, especially when, you only do it once a year. But this year, like I would imagine most shop owners won't want to go to shows themselves. The risk of being in a huge convention centre doesn't sound that appealing right now. So I don't think trade shows are over, but I think they will change a lot. One of the shows I haven't done before, but I was kind of interested in, Harrogate Home and Gift. Their show would have been this month and they went online. So I watched in on a few of their Zoom presentations. And it was good, and it was great to see the range in such detail and to have the owner of the business or someone selling really talk you through everything, which you might not get at a show if you're really busy and you need to kind of go and see several other people. But I did think it just missed, seeing things in person, especially with products. You kind of need to hold it and see what it's really like. Maybe I'm biased because I love stationery, but I think number one, it's that tactility of the product, but also with cards, especially, it's such a last minute purchase quite a lot of the time. So I think people just want somewhere to run in and get like a nice gift and a card. And in terms of Ballyhackamore, yeah, I live here, so that's kind of the appeal. It's really important to me that my business and my life are kind of in sync and work hand in hand, and I don't want to be traveling really far for my work. But at the same time, I really love this little area that I'm in, and I think there's a real gap here. There's so many restaurants and cafes and that sort of thing, but there's no good shops, and I think the customers here, but the shops aren't here yet. So I'm hoping that I can be the first one to kind of bring that to this area. So there's like kind of a cool little independent thing going on in East Belfast as well. I've only just moved here, so I didn't really know East Belfast that well before I moved 2 years ago. But yeah, like Guilt Trip Coffee and Archive 12, the bridal shop, there's quite a cool little mix of, independence coming along. So yeah, I just want to add to that really and make this a cool part of town really.
Dublin is a city that Emma looks to for inspiration when it comes to what Belfast's independent retail scene could look like. And she hopes that Belfast can nurture its homegrown creative talent.
Dublin's such an interesting place to visit for us, like anyone in Ireland really, but also for anyone coming over, tourists. I think that there's lots to see, there's lots to do. Belfast has just kind of lost that, well, it's a difficult history really, but like the city centre, it got really well developed, and then all these high street brands came in and it feels like it's losing that again. It's like a bit of a void. So when Born and Bred came into the city centre and things like that, there was a real atmosphere starting. So hopefully a few more independents would be great. But then the problem is as well, the units are so big that, and then in Victoria Square and things like that, they're so expensive. I don't know that many independents could even afford to take on city centre lets. So I think in a few years' time, those big brands, like Topshop or whatever else, they'll all slowly disappear and they need to be replaced with independents.
We asked Emma whether she had any advice that has come as a result of her experience during lockdown.
Be really adaptable, because that's really important, but also it's just given me so much more gratitude for every single sale. And I was already grateful for everything, but I'm grateful for how the business has grown. But I think this has just reinforced that, it's amazing that people want to give me money for my products, especially right now. They have so many things to be thinking about, and the fact that I can still run my business during all this is just incredible. So yeah, just a renewed gratitude and a renewed flexibility.
I mean, I've grown my following over the years and stuff, but I feel like during lockdown, I've actually like really connected with people. I started sharing my daily walks on my Insta stories, just kind of like little clips of around wherever I was walking or whatever, and like the birds singing, like just kind of really like little relaxing snippets. And I would get so many messages of people thanking me for sharing these videos because they were maybe in cities where they couldn't really go outside, or it was just kind of a nice break from what was going on, and that was kind of a cool way to connect with people.
California-born Lauren Taylor is an artist and illustrator based in Newry, who, through her online business Lauren Taylor Creates, has been able to turn her love of painting and travel into a career.
I do all sorts of projects. I create original artwork. I do prints and limited edition prints more recently. I've done illustration work for companies, for branding, editorial work as well.
With almost 40,000 followers on Instagram, Lauren maintains a hugely impressive creative business through social media, all while working from home or wherever else she might find herself. Lauren began carving out a full-time career as an artist 6 years ago, but it wasn't initially the career path she set out on.
Art was always something I loved to do. I was really passionate about it, but I never thought I could make a career from it. It didn't really seem like a practical career choice, and I didn't really want to teach. So I chose business and just kind of kept art as a side hobby.
With a couple of years spent as a TV news producer, Lauren's desire to travel became too strong to ignore, and she quit her job to explore South America. At that time, the seeds of Lauren's current work were being sown through a little side hustle on Etsy.
Well, kind of in between that, I was also painting, and I had kind of a little side thing on Etsy, which was going okay. And I started selling some prints and decided, this is something I can do like while I'm traveling. I had a printer in the States that would drop ship art for me, and it kind of worked out nicely. I definitely like jumped in way before I was ready. I was just kind of like, I'm just going to do this, and went for it. Which, like, looking back and, over the last couple years after that, like, it took a while to get established and everything, but I'm extremely glad I did, because now I'm definitely kind of in the flow of my career, and I love being an artist.
On her travels through South America, a romance developed, and the sunshine of California was soon swapped for the lush green of Newry.
We met in a hostel in Valparaiso, Chile, and we just started talking and just kind of hit it off, and ended up spending a couple days together. Then, as backpackers do, went our separate ways for about 2 months, and we knew we'd both be in Colombia around the same time. So we ended up meeting back up, and that was kind of it. We ended up traveled together for 4 or 5 months, and then he had to go back home to work, and I was going back to the States for a while. So just did long distance after that until got engaged and moved over here. So yeah.
By building her shop window in the digital space, she had also built mobility and flexibility into where and how she worked, meaning that operating from Ireland has been a relatively smooth transition.
Yeah, I think for the most part it is easy to do my work here. Sometimes, like, the things I am shipping can be a little difficult, with timing, especially. That was one issue I ran into during lockdown. Was I had this massive limited edition print launch, and it sold out in a day. And I was actually shipping all these orders because I was signing them, so I thought I needed to take them and then ship them myself. And the postal service was like, it was just a nightmare because most of them were going abroad and some of them took 6 to 8 weeks to arrive to people. And that was a bit overwhelming, just kind of being inundated with emails about, like people thinking their package was missing, but it was just taking longer because customs and the postal service were overrun. But other than that, I haven't had really any issues, or difficulties with my business being here. So yeah, it's been a pretty seamless transition.
Of course, Lauren explains that being based in Ireland has a certain attraction to American audiences. In fact, Lauren's big plan for 2020 was to launch a new tour company to share the beauty of Ireland with fellow artists and creatives looking for inspiration and space in idyllic surroundings. Needless to say, 2020 had other ideas.
I guess back in February, March, we were still hopeful that our first tour that we had scheduled was for May. So, but way back then, it feels like years ago now. We were hopeful that May felt ages away. So we were like, oh, sure, this will all blow over by then. And then, like late March, April came around and we realized we'd have to cancel. And we had another tour booked for August. And it was people coming over from America. And since the situation over there is so bad, unfortunately, we've had to cancel both of them. So it definitely, kind of railroaded our new tour company completely this year. But we're just trying to kind of take it on the chin and just think of ways that we can make it even bigger, even better for next year, and other things that we can do, like more local tours and like more shorter like weekend breaks, things like that.
Despite this setback, lockdown saw an unexpected upturn in her established business and provided space to experiment.
As far as my painting goes, I've actually been significantly busier and my business has been booming during quarantine, which was like extremely unexpected. But I also kind of felt like if I had been focusing on these tours, I wouldn't have been creating the amount of artwork that I have over the last couple months. And that's definitely contributed. And I've kind of switched into a new style of painting. That I think because I thought things would be slowing down, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like work on my own stuff, and that's actually really taken off, and people have really resonated with what I've been creating over the last couple months.
So what explains this increased demand for her work?
I think a lot of people, well, this is just, I guess, my thoughts. I think a lot of my customers during lockdown are people who are probably doing home projects. I think it seems to be actually a lot of people are shopping a lot more, especially online. And I'm only online, I didn't have any sort of like retail space or anything. So that wasn't affected in any way. And I think a lot more people are spending time on social media, on Instagram. So yeah, I say like most of my following's women 25 to 45, and mostly in America as well. So yeah.
Lauren says that for her at least, it hasn't been difficult to maintain that American following whilst in Ireland, or indeed during lockdown.
Yeah, I think because I'm from there, I kind of had that start. My sister is a blogger as well, so that's been great. We've collaborated a few times, which has been cool. And I've just kind of grown that following. And then, yeah, people love, like I said, when I'm, walking down the towpath or in the mountains or anything, like share a little piece of Northern Ireland.
Fortunately, while the tours have had to be put on hold for this year, Lauren and her partner had started small, and they have used the year to develop their plans and marketing strategy.
We decided to kind of start small. I guess the nice thing about our tours was that we didn't really need any upfront or much upfront capital. I think now that we're moving everything to next year, we're kind of ramping things up I just launched our tours through my website. I already have. I created a page and for people to do that. But now that we've had to cancel everything, we are actually having all of our branding done. And I'm building out a separate website. We are actually going on our August tour.
Lauren points out that one of the most interesting things from this year has been watching how other businesses have adapted to the challenges.
I think in a way that's been exciting for some companies. I think that they've done different things. Like I've done different things that I never would have thought. And even like with our tours, we were always planning on launching kind of weekend break shorter tours that would be more geared towards more local people. But that was something that maybe we were going to develop maybe a little bit later. But with everything going on, it's probably something we're going to really focus on for next year and kind of launch a lot more of those and maybe just one or two of the bigger tours.
The consolation for many creatives like Lauren is how, in a time of economic crisis, many people have shown their support to small businesses they love.
I think people, with everything going on, people have in their minds that they want to be supporting smaller businesses, which has been a really cool push. I think big brands are really struggling now because of this big push and stuff, and people I think are like, wait, why am I shopping at these big ones? We need to support the small ones, otherwise they're just going to disappear. I think everyone was really worried about that too, which has been nice to see this kind of drive for supporting small business, and I really hope that continues because small business is everything. Like we don't want just a bunch of big Tesco's and shopping centers everywhere. It's the little boutiques and online shops and creators and artists that are important.
Self-described Yorkshire lad Andi Jarvis moved to Northern Ireland from England, and after working in industry for several years set up his own company Eximo Marketing, which he now runs from his home in the coastal town of Bangor. Andi's other projects include Wi-Fi Refugees, a fundraising project where marketing professionals donate time to help small businesses raise money for refugee charities. Andi's passion is strategy for brands, something every business has become increasingly aware of during a time when brand messaging is key with regards to the pandemic, to activism and to authenticity. He started a new podcast called Strategy Sessions during the lockdown, inviting guests to speak on everything from luxury to rugby and entrepreneurs. We started off by asking Andi about what marketers really do.
Marketing's a human discipline. It's about people. And to me, if you don't look at that element, who's delivering it, then everything's going to go wrong from there. So I do lots of training with teams. I help put suppliers together with clients so that marketing can be delivered properly and understand people who we're trying to reach as well. And then the performance bit. Marketing has a checkered reputation with marketers liking to talk about rubbish metrics that don't mean anything. But actually performance in most companies is about how many things have you sold, and marketers need to get more comfortable with that. So strategy multiplied by people equals performance. 30-40% of my work will be not in Northern Ireland. Belfast International Airport's my second home, basically. So not having so much travel and not eating so much crap food on the go has been a godsend for me for a little while anyway. So I get up in the morning and I live in Bangor, so I go out for a walk around the coast. Usually I'm out at sort of sometime between 7 and past for a walk, which takes me about an hour, and just really clear my head and get ready for the day. I don't podcast. I don't take music. I leave my phone at home. Otherwise, I find I spend the whole walk looking at my phone or stopping and sending emails. I just put it down, get out for a walk, come back, get ready, start to work at 9 o'clock. But I think it's important for me to kind of keep that start time, because I found when I first started working at home a couple of years ago that it was easy to, I'll have a lie in, I'll go to the gym, I'll do this, it's 10:30, and you feel like you're just chasing your feet all day. So I always aim to be started at 9 o'clock and walk in the morning. And then you almost feel like you're in front because you've been out of the house, you've got some fresh air. I get dressed for work when I'm coming to work. It's just a mental trigger that works for me. A friend of mine was like, I haven't worn trousers or shoes for 2 months. I was like, mate, I'm in my shoes. I could go to a meeting with a client. I'd maybe take the jumper off, but I could go to a meeting with a client any day at 2 minutes notice because I'm dressed. I've washed, brushed my teeth. It just kind of those little things you would do if you were going to go to work anyway. And I don't eat lunch at my desk. I make a point of when I'm having my lunch or when I'm having a snack, I do it away from my desk just to try and keep that separation between home and work. We're creatures of habit, and even people who like things to be a little bit unstructured and spontaneous, and like the spontaneity has gone out of my life. It's not right, I've got Tesco's, but even I do quite like some unstructured things and some spontaneity to it. Having those anchors around the day really helps. So like one thing I could never do, I could never plan meals for a week. I know some people do that and it's like, right, well, Monday's spaghetti bolognese day, Tuesday's fish and chips day, Wednesday. Now that to me just sucks all the spontaneity out of my life. It's like everything's so rigid. It must be like being in a proper prison when that happens. You never leave the house, you know what meals you're having at what time on what days. And it works for some people, but it wouldn't work for me. My kind of creative freedom on some days, if you will, is going to the fridge, pulling the doors open and having a look and going, oh, right, okay, I can put this with that. And, and that's where I kind of switch off as well. Because you can use a big sharp knife in the kitchen and nobody can complain about it as well. So it's like you can get the stress out of your day. So yeah, that's how I manage anyway. Certain things I do are going to change immensely. So a small part of my business is being paid to speak at events. I was supposed to go to New York, Philadelphia, and Vancouver between May and September to speak at events. It won't be a surprise to anyone to know that I'm not going to New York, Philadelphia, or Vancouver to speak at an event. And that has a little bit of an impact financially, but also a bigger impact, a huge impact on business development, because it's part of how I win new businesses, speaking at these events and meeting people and talking up and following up after them. So yeah, that's going to be a problem. And I'm a very in-person sort of speaker. There's a lot of visual cues you get from me when I'm speaking. There's lots of moving parts when I'm speaking at events, and it doesn't quite carry. I've done a lot of work to try and improve my Zoom delivery, my video delivery, and made some really interesting changes that I think are working well. But I would say the best I can ever be digitally is only about 25% of what I am in person. So, as much as I can ramp that up, it's never going to replace being there in person. So that's something I've had to look at from that point of view of the business.
Andy's Wi-Fi had been excellent until he recorded this podcast with us, but luckily it provided some great comedy.
What did I say about having great Wi-Fi? I've got whizzy bangy Wi-Fi. It's fucking just dropped out in the middle of the call. You shit out.
We asked Andy about his thoughts on how brands are reacting to some of the hot topics and themes to arise in 2020, and whether they have been connecting to their audiences well.
Whether it's the pandemic, whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's Pride, whether it's just giving people refunds or terms of business, whatever it is, what connects all of that is authenticity. And what boiled my piss over COVID and Black Lives Matter and any of these things really is the lack of authenticity from some companies in how they approach this. You saw one company came out with a message from the CEO over some plinky plonk shitty file music about, during these challenging times, we're with you. We stand together. It's like, oh, go bollocks with you. And if you had to take the branding off the end of the video, you would never know which company it was that was ramming this bullshit down your throat. And actually what you needed was someone who just to do it in a really authentic way. Now, from a COVID perspective, I thought Tesco did it really, really well. I've been around enough big businesses to know it wasn't actually the CEO who was sending me an email every week, but that email came from the CEO, and I have no doubt that it was signed off by him personally. There was an email which came out every week which explained changes that were being made in store, how they were supporting people who worked there, how they were ramping up capacity. And maybe they made some mistakes at the beginning, but quite quickly they got ahead of the game. And I was getting an email a week explaining what they were doing nationally, then also your local store. This is the change into the opening hours. This is why we're doing it. And I just thought they did it really nicely without resorting to cliche. They just told you what was going on, why it was happening, and what you could. And I thought that was brilliant communication. I thought they did really, really well. Bearing in mind, they had the other problem to what most people had. In those first couple of weeks, they were talking about doing Christmas week sales every single day for a month. If you think of your busiest day of the year, that maybe happens once or twice or three times, and just keep having that busiest day for 2 months, everything in your system, your supply chain, everything comes under pressure. And for them to, there wasn't toilet roll on the shelves for a little while, and they had a few problems with queues. But if you think about the logistical challenge they managed to get their head around, the problem wasn't a marketing challenge. The problem was a business-wide logistics challenge. And once they did that, the communications end was just about how did they do it well. And I thought they did it quite well. Black Lives Matter, same thing. Companies that you sit and looking at going, that's nice that you've posted a black tile on social media. Oh, cute. But really? When you watch your history of standing up for this, you're just jumping on the bandwagon. It's my favorite scene in The Simpsons where the immortal words of Homer J. Simpson, quick, everybody to the bandwagon. And that's what businesses were doing. It's like, you could just imagine the phone calls going, yeah, Andy, we haven't posted a black tile. Quick, post one. Why? Just everyone else's. Shit, go on. And that's what it felt like with a lot of companies. And there was a lot of people called out on that bullshit of, here's a picture of your board. Here's a picture of your board 10 years ago. And here's a picture of your board 20 years ago. Oh, look, it looks exactly the same now. So spare me the bullshit of the black tile and tell me what you're going to do about it. And I will never criticize a company. Never might be too strong. I don't like to criticize companies that tell you where they've gone wrong and tell you what they're going to do to change. So if a company comes out and says, look, here's our black tile for Black Lives Matter. Actually, we haven't done enough about this. Here's what our board looks like. Here's the problems we've got. And here's how we're going to try and fix it. Brilliant. Because look, we're not all perfect, right? Nobody. So I like the fact that people will set that direction of travel. Companies I thought that did it well. Ben & Jerry's didn't they put a black tile up, yeah, but they also released a statement that was a searing critique of what's going on in the US and really just calling out people going, look, this just isn't good enough. And it was a real, now bear in mind, they're owned by Unilever as well. They still have a bit of independence, but they're owned by Unilever. And, they came out and they were like, it's not just about posting black tiles. You've got to be anti-racist. We've got to be doing this. You've got to be doing that. So I thought Ben & Jerry's did that really, really well. Somebody tweeted Yorkshire Tea and said, because they didn't post a black tile. So this woman tweeted and said, I'm really glad that Yorkshire Tea didn't get on board with this Black Lives Matter. I just want my tea to be drunk. I don't want a political statement or something like that. And Yorkshire Tea came back and went, no, we're just listening and learning and educating ourselves before we do anything. So if you have a problem drinking a tea that supports Black Lives Matter, you might want to find another tea. And then Tetley's Tea jumped in underneath it and went, actually, love, you might want to find 2 teas because we don't want you drinking our tea either. So they kind of, tea wars broke out on Twitter, which was wonderful. But I think those companies that kind of put a little bit of their own spin on it and authenticity are the ones who will win. And that's not just a lesson for Black Lives Matter. It's not just a lesson for dealing with coronavirus. It's a lesson for marketing generally. Your organization has a tone and voice. It has a feel to it. It has a way of doing things. Find that and then use it relentlessly in your marketing, because that's what differentiation is. That's the bit that nobody else can copy.
What's common to all of the creatives that we've interviewed is their passion for innovation and entrepreneurship in what they do. So we asked Andy what strategic advice he would offer to the sector as a whole.
we're talking about creative businesses, and hopefully there's an audience of people running creative businesses listening. And from the companies I've worked with and the people I know in the sector who we've maybe partnered with on projects, or we've, I've come into a company where they're already working or whatever it is. I suppose the one play I would have is value what you do, because you see so many creative businesses who struggle sometimes, and you go, okay, so let's have a look at what you're doing at your business. And they love the work that they do so much that they end up just cutting price to get that work. And actually have a look at the value that you add to the company and start thinking of your business in those terms, because there's so many brilliant creatives that I meet and see out there. And then, so many people say, oh, it's a bit of a struggle sometimes. And you think, well, I think you've got to get both sides of the business. You've got to be brilliant at what you do, but you've got to have that business understanding as well.
You'll find Andi's work on exemomarketingstrategy.com.
In this episode, we've looked at how 4 creatives have adapted to living and working online. This escalation of digital communication and remote working technologies into so many areas of life will surely be one of the most historically notable features of this period. Few of us would want to live through our screens in this way for any serious length of time. And yet, it has also created many new opportunities for connecting, meeting and working, which offer exciting new possibilities. In our final episode, we'll look at how people have attempted to stay sane in this most unusual of years.
The World Turned Upside Down was supported by Future Screens NI, NI Screen and Ulster University, and it was recorded remotely. Project management and additional support was from Blick Shared Studios. The podcast was produced, written, recorded and edited by Graeme Watson and Karishma Kusurkar. Academic research supporting the project is from Dr. Brian Dixon at Ulster University. A special thanks to our episode 3 guests, Shannon Dolores O'Neill, Emma Johnston, Andi Jarvis and Lauren Taylor. Check out the show notes to find out more about them. The World Turned Upside Down is a small town, big dreams production.